Game week 31, best wildcard team. Now, we're going to be discussing, is it better to bench boost in game week 32 or bench boost in game week 33? We're also going to be discussing the double game weeks coming up as well in the future, potentially double game week 36, and looking at then the best teams for each individual situation you could potentially have in your teams. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do hit subscribe. This is the place to be for daily FPL content. It takes 1 second and it'd be very greatly appreciated. Now, we've got to start off by talking about the double game week 33. Of course, we're going to be focusing on this double game week with the fact that there's going to be a lot of players in our team that are from these teams in particular, and as well as that, there's double game week 32 as well. But the double game week teams are Arsenal, who play Crystal Palace and Ipswich, Aston Villa play against Newcastle and Man City, Crystal Palace then against Bournemouth and Arsenal, and then Man City do double game week against Everton and Aston Villa. So we'll start off with the bench boost in game week 32. The team that I would select is if you want to play your bench boost in game week 32. We'll give you a run through of the team for game week 31, how it would look if you was a wild card into this team. David Raya in goal, I think, with the double game week in 33. He is a great option. We've then got Dan Burn, who is, of course, double game week in 32. You could also go for Livramento if you wanted to. The choice is completely yours. Dan Burn is on 8 yellow cards to warn you on that one as well. Then we've got Saliba. Of course, Gabriel was injured, so we're going to go for Saliba in the side. Then we're going to go for Moon as well as back-to-back double game weeks. Not ideal fixtures, but at the end of the day, it's 2 fixtures for Crystal Palace. Going to the midfield, then we've got Bukayo Saka, of course, doubles in game week 33. Then we have Mohamed Salah, who, of course, for me, has to be in the team. I mean, a lot of people have gone without him, to be fair, quite a few have, but for me, I just think I'd have to stick with Salah with how good he's been this season. Ismail Assar then in the team for the back-to-back doubles. Then we've got Savinho. It's a bit of a point. He's not guaranteed to keep his place in the side, but he's looking good for the moment. He's obviously got an assist and all 3 bonus points in game week 30. So I'm going to go for Savinho as the midfielder there. You could swap him out if you wanted to for maybe somebody else. If you want to, you can maybe go for, in this team, you could maybe go Savinho to Asensio. We'll discuss the bench boost 33 team in a minute, but you could go for Asensio instead of Savinho if you wanted to. Then we've got Alexander Isak, who is still potentially out for game week 30. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Then we've got Mamouche and Mateta, a pretty standard front 3. With the bench then having Nick Pope on it, you could also start Nick Pope this week if you wanted to, because Leicester haven't scored in like 8 Premier League games in a row, something crazy like that. Then we've got Morgan Rogers for double game week 33. And then as well as that, we've got Gvardiol and then Ezri Konsa as well. So then if you did want your bench boost in game week 32, this is how the team would look. So you have Nick Pope then for the double game week against Man United and Crystal Palace. Then you also have Dan Burn as well against Man United and Palace, of course, as well. Then you've got Alexander Isak as your third player, doubling then against Man United and Crystal Palace. And then the Crystal Palace triple up is, of course, Munoz, Ismail Assar, and then Mateta. Now, then the rest of the team does look pretty good. You've got good fixtures in there, looking at Morgan Rogers versus Southampton, Salah against West Ham, Saka against Brentford, and then you've got Man City against Crystal Palace for Mamouche, Gvardiol, and Savinho. So this is when you would play your bench boost. Now, the 3 players that I'd probably put on the bench there would be David Raya, Savinho, Saliba, and Konsa. So the bench there that you've got is double Arsenal defence against Brentford in David Raya and Saliba. And then you've got Savinho, who's got Crystal Palace at home, which isn't a bad fixture at all for Man City, who are looking a bit better in recent weeks, to be fair. And then you got Konsa against Southampton. So overall there, you'd say that's a pretty nice, it's obviously a single game week bench boost, but it is a game week 32 bench boost. That's what you're going to have to do. But the fixtures, if you're looking at it there, are pretty nice. Defensively there for Aston Villa, very good. Double Arsenal defence is quite trustworthy. And then as well as that, Savinho is quite good as well. So that would be the double game week 32 team. Then the one problem going to double game week 33 is that you have 11 players double game week in. And as you can see there, Mo Salah is sat on the bench. So if you wanted to in that team, you could maybe swap out Konsa for somebody else with a nice fixture in game week 32. But I wanted to keep Konsa in there just due to the fact that in case you get any injuries or anything like that, someone could then come out and you don't have to use a transfer. You can just bring Mo Salah straight in. And as well as that, Konsa has a great game week 32 fixture against Southampton. So you'd have to then not bench boost, of course, in game week 33. Or if you preferred that, you could go for this. But then I'll show you the second team in a second, which is obviously very similar, which then enables you to bench boost in game week 33. But in this team, you would probably have to either bench a double game week player, or you would have to bench Mohamed Salah, which realistically no one is going to do. So that's just in case you get an injury up until that game week, maybe Savinho drops out of the team, something like that, just so you're covered for them areas. So this is now the second wildcard team that I've made, and there's actually only one change. Now, of course, then the other team, you can maybe swap out Savinho for Asensio. On this one, you actually can't do that. So, as I say, there's a triple up on Aston Villa, but we've got 2 Aston Villa defenders, and then 1 midfielder. So we swapped out Nick Pope, and then we have, in fact, then brought in Emi Martinez of Aston Villa. Now, of course, for me, I'll be benching them Aston Villa assets this week. You could maybe start Morgan Rogers over Savinho if you feel like it. but the other players I would just be benching. So going into game week 32, you would have to be benching quite a few decent assets, but then we'll look at the game week 33 bench boost in a second. You would have to probably be benching David Raya against Brentford, or if you wanted to play David Raya over Martinez, you could do that. You could still bring Saliba into the team. It's a difficult decision in terms of who to play. Savinho, then you probably have to bench against Crystal Palace, and then as well as that, you have to bench Conte against Southampton and Saliba against Brentford. So it's not an ideal bench boost right there. Obviously, it depends on which players you want to personally start, but there's no getting away from the fact that it'll be quite a painful time not to bench boost in game week 32. But then when you look at the game week 33 bench boost, it does then all make sense as to why you would bench boost in game week 33 over game week 32. So this is what it would look like in game week 33, and as I say, this is why you would be bench boosting in that game week. So as I say here, you've got 11 double game week players all starting, which is pretty nice there. And you've also got a double game weeker on the bench as well with Martinez. So you've got the 2 goalkeepers there. You've got 4 fixtures for the 2 goalkeepers. And then you look onto the bench there, you have got Mo Salah, who is against Leicester, who will be on the bench, who's of course got a single game week. Then the other 2 players aren't ideal. I mean, Dan Burn against Aston Villa isn't the best. Isak, you're quite happy to play in a bench boost, to be honest, against Aston Villa. I'd be quite happy with that personally. But you also do then have transfers in the bank as well. So you could maybe take out Dan Burn and bring in another player that, I mean, we're pretty much covering all the double game weeks there. You're looking at, you've got triple Man City, you've got triple Arsenal, you've got triple Palace, you've also got triple Aston Villa as well. So that is literally all the double game weeks you have absolutely maxed out on. So you wouldn't be able to bring in anybody in terms of a double game week player, but you could bring in a player that's got an ideal fixture in game week 33. And you do have quite a bit of money in the bank in this team as well. So there's Liverpool that play against Leicester. You can maybe move to a Liverpool asset. I mean, there's West Ham who could potentially double later on down the line in game week 36, and they play against Southampton, so you can maybe bring in a Wan-Bissaka and then hope for the best with a double game week. Spurs have quite a likely chance of a double game week in 36, but they do play Nottingham Forest, so they would probably end up conceding. Wolves have a chance of a double game week as well. They play against United. You can maybe look at players that do have the potential chance of double game week in game week 36 maybe. But anyway, that will about do for the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like down below. If it helped you out, please do subscribe to the channel. If you've watched this point, you may as well hit subscribe. It'd be very greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.